All right, good morning, AP Huggers. Remember, hope you're all doing well today. If you remember from last time, this was the question I left you with. How would linguistically diverse countries have a central government? Remember what that term is, a linguistically diverse country? How do you do it? If you're Switzerland with four languages, or where was it? Papua New Guinea with 850. How do you do it? Well, I gave you time to think about it, and now it's time, for the answer because I'm fair that way. Ah, there it is. Many countries that have a diverse language or have many different languages create an official language and they say, this is the one we're going to have. And remember, and most of them, ironically, well, not most of them, but a lot of them choose English, and India chooses English, colonization and British Empire and all that stuff. And remember, official language is the language of law, it's the language of documents, it's the language that gets a country to get its work done. You are free to speak whatever you want, but an official language really is not one that you have to speak. But if you want to understand how a government works or you want to be able to get stuff done, then yes, you should know it. So here in India, if you want to get anything done from a political standpoint, knowing English would be beneficial. And if you know, and not only that, but knowing English, generally speaking, is a good thing to do in the world today because, we have this issue with more than one language in our head. Now, and I just kind of gave you all that information so we can go ahead a couple slides. Look at that. I am on the ball. It is the language of government. Documents, stamps, street signs, anything that is official, anything that is governmental will be in an official language. Every country has one. That's what it is. Now, that does not mean that that is the only language that these documents will be written in, or signs or other political things. If you go to Quebec in Canada, is French first, English second. In fact, if you when they play hockey again, the Canadians might not. The next time you listen to a Montreal Canadiens um, hockey game, the very first announcement of a goal or a penalty is always in French and then in English. In Ireland, the signs are English Gaelic. In Cherokee, North Carolina, the signs are Cherokee English or English Cherokee. Both languages are there. So an official language doesn't necessarily mean it's the only language, or it's not even the native language. So just remember that. It's just an official language for getting work done. Um, why would India's official language be English? World history. All right. So, just like, look at this. You would think I had given these notes before. All right. Here's one. The official language is not always a majority language, and that's important to know. Let's go back. Only five. New Zealand's official language is only spoken by 5% of the population. Can you guess as to what the official language of New Zealand might be? And I also find this interesting because New Zealand is an English-speaking country, so you would think that English would be the official language, but it's not. So that begs the question: what do you think 5% of New Zealanders speak? I'll wait. Hold on. Hey Siri, what is the official language of New Zealand?
Three languages are spoken in New Zealand: English, Malay, and New Zealand Sign Language.
Maori is the official language that we are speaking of here. The Maori is what we're speaking of here. I also think it's neat that New Zealand recognizes sign language as an official language. That's cool. And I did not know that. Look at that. Fun facts everywhere. Another issue with language, some countries have more than one official language. And I talked about this last week. Whoops. Switzerland has German, French, Italian, and Romansh. And again, if you think about it, and in your head, mental map, where is Switzerland? Who surrounds Switzerland? Where directionally are they surrounded? And there you go. Now, I find now this is interesting in that they have chosen to allow all four to be official languages. I don't live in Switzerland, so my head doesn't have to worry about that. But that's kind of cool. All right, moving on. The European branch. So here we go. Hey, I think this may be talking about English. Just thinking. All right. So these are the various languages. I apologize for my head. I make me smaller. No, I can't do that. Of the European branch, so we have the Romance languages: French, Spanish, Italian, Romanian, Portuguese, or Portuguese. Germanic languages: English, German, Danish, Norwegian, and Swedish. And then Slavic languages: Russian, Polish, Czech, Ukrainian, Slovenian, and Serbo-Croatian. These are all in the European family. I like how this person making the PowerPoint just really took a list and cut and paste because of all the commas. All right, that's just a thing. So here we go. So now here are your different languages spoken in Europe: English, Scottish Gaelic, Faroese, Dutch, Frisian, German, Danish. Okay, you can read all these different languages here. Notice that over here where you had two different colors, you have a mixture of Russian and Kazakh. Um, Down here you have different languages. Remember, when we looked at the Middle East, sorry, Southwest Asia, how linguistically diverse that was and how that can cause problems or challenges. Not everything is necessarily problematic. Language isolate. There's another term for you. There's one example of a language isolate, and we'll get to that. I'll bet you in just a second. So, ta-da! Is a language that is not related to any other language around it. You could make an excellent case that geography is probably the most important reason why this language occurs where it does, why it seems so different from the others, and why, sort of as the second half of this definition tells us, that it's kind of like it's their own language family. And Basque, from the map of Europe, is not the only one. So just remember, it's just a language that developed. It's an independent invention, only it's a language. It just develops by itself over time with apparently no influence from any other language. All right, questions? Doing all right? The English language. Yay, it's us. Okay, so here we go. Whoops, let's back up. Oh, holy cow. Whoa. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, okay. Got a little excited there because it was all English because, America. Okay, the English language. We're going to look at the origins, how it diffused. American English, which any person from from England will tell you is not English. English as a global lingua franca, and we'll get into what a lingua franca is here shortly. And then toponymy. Again, using your stems and words from the past, you should know what toponymy is. And if you don't, well, I'm here. You'll know. All right, so here we go. The origins of English. So, remember, go back to the previous lecture. What's our language family? Do you remember? What branch? Come on. No? I think it's Indo-European, and I'm pretty sure English is Germanic, but don't take my word for it. All right, so here we go. Where does English come from? It comes from a number of places: Germanic tribes, Latin. How does Latin? How does Latin get into English? Come on, think about world history. How does Latin get into English? Old Norse, because they invaded the islands. Norman French, because I'll just put a year here. That might help. And then the Celtic tribes, the natives, part of the natives. Okay, so all of these different cultures, and if you think about it, there's some different sounds here, and vocabularies. All of these go into the birth of English. So that said, this may also explain why it's as many students who come from other countries will tell you it's such a difficult language to speak. And this doesn't even get into American English. But this is where English from, you know, Britannia originates. All right, so here we go. Now, we have Old English, Middle English, and Modern English. Um, Hopefully, you will read Chaucer in the 12th grade and read the Canterbury Tales. It's a nice little book, a bunch of little short stories about people basically passing the time on their way to Canterbury to the Abbey. It's kind of like what you're doing now, passing time from one day to the next. All right, so this is the Lord's Prayer in Old English. Now, try and read it, go right ahead, but remember 3 slides previous and the different groups that go into English and see if you can see where um, some of those cultures play into this language. Just take a second. Again, you're not in a hurry. These notes are here; they're always here. But um, you can see Gaelic influence here, and you can see Northern European here, and so it's kind of cool. I'm gonna guess Latin here. I'm probably wrong. I'm just saying based on looking at it, that's what I see. So this is the Lord's Prayer in Old English. Now, if you know the Lord's Prayer, I here you just learned something. That is Father. Right here is Father in Old English. Well, that's kind of cool. Okay, and okay. This is the Lord's Prayer in Middle English, and this is the English of that story, the Canterbury Tales of Chaucer. This is the English of that time period. Okay, again, still Father. Okay, but there's our. Notice that in the previous one it doesn't start with our, just Father. Uh, there's heaven. I mean, again, it looks a little bit, we can make sense of what the text is. And look, this is cool. There's evil. All right. Anyway. Okay, and notice too that somehow this is forgiven. So I'm curious as to what sounds uh, this is because they don't read like this. And hopefully your English teacher, wherever you are, um, will have audio or will be really well versed in this and can read it and pronunciate it and pronounce it so that you get it. My senior English teacher, a little backstory, Miss Mildred Shuford, the one of the reasons I'm a teacher. We had to learn the prologue to the Canterbury Tales in Old English, and she read it to us. And I can still do like the first 5 or 6 lines today. And I graduated from high school, like 10 years ago. So it's something that stays with you, and it's kind of cool. Modern English, we're not going to post it because we don't want people thinking that we're preaching. So how once it becomes English with ye and thou, post Shakespearean, post Elizabethan, or naturally Elizabethan English and forward. Um, Forward. I gotta remember where the camera is. All right, should do a TikTok. Anyway, how does English get to other parts of the world? Well, remember there are 4 types of diffusions. Which ones, if any, if not all, apply to? Excuse me. Um, don't worry, they're not coming for me. Apply to how English diffused. And remember, take a second and think about the 4 types of diffusions, and then we'll move on. All right. So now, one way is because England had a few colonies. The pinkish salmony color is everywhere a British flag once or currently does still fly. Once flew, still flies. So relocation diffusion, um, maybe hierarchical stimulus diffusion, definitely contagious diffusion. Um, those are some of the ways that English diffuses across the globe, and it helps because when England's at its height, when it's its most powerful, 25% of the world's population is under its control. And that saying that the sun never set on the British Empire was true. No matter where the sun went, 24 hours a day, there was a British flag being shown by the sun. So that helps get your language across. And that also explains why India chose English to be their official language. And other places, but India. Yeah. We did this. Now, the diffusion of English from Britain to the colonies to the United States, and then from the United States to its annexes, because even America did a little imperialism at the end of the 19th century. There wasn't a whole lot left. We missed out on the Americas because we weren't a thing. We missed out on Africa because Civil War, and we just missed out on it. Um, Asia, we kind of get to, but we're an island imperialist country. Guam, the Philippines, Puerto Rico, a bunch of little islands in the Pacific. Now, there's other types of imperialism, but save that for economics. So this is now you're going to see how the English language not only moves but changes because mother tongue English in Britain will not be the same English from the colonies, and since America was once a colony, our English is not going to be the same. And to take that, even next level, our changed morphed English language when it goes to the Philippines is not going to be the same English because of culture, like that TED Talk you were supposed to watch discusses. So here we go. Does English sound the same wherever it's spoken? No, excuse me. Okay, it doesn't, and it doesn't because of geography. It just doesn't. All right. So dialects are those differences in the language. There you go. It is why in North Carolina we say y'all, and in New York and up north it's yous or you guys, or in Western Pennsylvania it's yins or yuns. So it's that. It's how in the South G's get left off of letters. It's fixing to. Uh, it's not fixing to, or different words are used, or different word combinations are used. All those things connote dialect. When word usage is one of those things. Everybody in the world doesn't. Everybody in America doesn't call a soda because that's just not the term used in different parts of the country. Okay, so notice that dialect is not just spoken. Dialect impacts words specifically, like words that are used. They could be used differently. How they're spelled as well. So when you hear different people from different parts of America talk, in fact, dialects exist in every country. You can tell a difference between a Dubliner and someone from the west coast of like Cork, which is Cork, or up in Galway. You can tell same thing in England. London to the Midlands to the north. I mean, it has to do with what with whom you come in contact and what you have in your area. All right, now American English. Here we go. So different set now. Why? Here's how we're different. One, no turkeys in England. I don't think there's any beavers in England. There weren't any Native Americans in England. So all the unique items, flora, fauna, plant, wildlife, humans that you come within contact, they have to be named. They have to be called something. So either you make it up and go all Shakespearean and start making up words, or you use the words from the other local groups, like the Native Americans, and that's how these things get created. New inventions, things that never existed before, and there are lots in this country. They need to be called something. So, as far as words themselves, the geography and the peoples that we contact, that come in contact with the American settlers, are the reason certain words exist at all, or we co-opt their words. We spell things differently than the English do. Um, Color that has no O in America. Whoops. I'll figure this out eventually. Tire. When I went to Ireland on my honeymoon, tire. Tyre. Also, it's worth knowing that when we become America and after the War of 1812, see, America and England break up, and as I've said before, and I will continue to say, the Declaration of Independence is the greatest breakup letter of all time. Well, after some years of being separate, England, is like, look, You're not gonna find anybody as good as us. You're not doing well without me. You need me. Come on back. Come on back. And that's the War of 1812. Um, in an oversimplification. But that didn't work either. We're finally like, look, we're done with you. We keyed their car, all this stuff. We're done. And after that, the idea of being American starts to take like we're America now. We are the United. We're America. We're not England's little former colony. We're America. This is how we speak. And Mr. Webster made an American dictionary so that he could promote this American agenda. This is American English. This is how America speaks. These are our words. So the dictionary, in a way, is a very nationalist and what's the word? Help me out. Patriotic. There it is. Uh, piece of literature. I mean, if you think about it, it's every book ever written. Anyway, and then how things are pronounced again. Time and distance. Who you hear? We don't speak with an English accent anymore because the Atlantic Ocean and people from England stopped coming over. And then after generations, it goes away. But some things to think about for a second. If you listen to different parts of America, um, you might. I think that the Southern accent more closely resembles the English accent than other accents, like than Northern accents. And I think that immigration plays a part in that because in the South, not very tolerant to non-waspy people, to non-white Anglo-Saxon Protestant people. Not a large Jewish population, not a large Eastern European population. There wasn't a lot of immigration to the South because there weren't a lot of jobs because of slavery. So it's one group of people and one timbre and rhythm and language coming from England. And that's kind of why I think the Southern language is more closely tied to English. Um, I could be wrong, and linguistic scholars could also tell me I'm wrong, but that's just what I think. Now, and we talked about this. How does English language differ within different parts of the United States? Well, different words, different pronunciations, different spellings. Hold on. It's a little breezy. All right. I just wanted to be outside. So here we go. This, and I alluded to this a little while ago. This is how people in America, this is what they use, the generic name for a soft drink. Notice that the more blue it is, this is the pop region. This is the Coke region. This is the soda region. I grew up saying soda because I was right there. My college is right there. Let's see, right there. Come on, Hartford, there. And I served in the Navy here, and here, and here, and here. Anyway, a little bit about me. But I love this thing. And then the soda world's over here too. Now, interesting. So, and then others, lots of others. Look at North Carolina, by the way. Props to our state. Pretty diverse in what we call soda. Um, there's some soda pockets, some other pockets. There's some no data pockets. Wow. But that's kind of cool that this part of America seems to be much more diverse. And again, there are reasons for this, and we would discuss this. Since language is tied to culture, and since certain culture, I mean, why is it Coke here? Why is this pop? And why is this soda? And where's the soda pop data? I also think it's cool that here is soda. Anyway, so a lot of soda actually. But again, they all are talking about the same thing, just not using the same word. And that's kind of cool. And we can discuss this. And this is 2003. It'd be very interesting for us to see if there's a modern map. And also notice too, and this is where stats, and those of you moving on to math later on in life, or those of you who see stats and charts and tables, whether it be in a class or on the news, this is how many people answered that question. And there's over 300 million Americans, almost 330 million Americans. Now, when this was taken, let's say 300 million Americans. So that's a small percentage. So remember that too. But these super dark numbers should probably, our colors should lead you to believe, it's probably going to be true no matter what. Oh, and just for sake of review, what kind of map is that? All right, moving on. So, an isogloss, our next term. Here we go. An isogloss is a geographic boundary where a linguistic feature begins and ends or occurs. And again, it's not a formal boundary. It's not a physical boundary. It's just we talk this way, and then eventually we talk this way. What kind of regions would that be again? Where it just kind of stops and goes off into the ether, and there's like overlap, and then I mean, it's not a formal thing, so it's very, vernacular, or yeah, it's not a formal region at all. It just stops, and this slide shows you isogloss, and now to a degree, because it doesn't mean that nobody down here says soda or pop, just not enough. So like the cultural norm are these colors, but it's not as if once you cross Texas, no pop. All right, these are isoglosses in the United States, and these are all different linguistic regions. New England, New York has its own region. The Great Lakes, the Upper Midwest, the Midlands, the Mountain Southern, the Coastal Southern, and the Western. Now, a couple other things. You can also, if you think about it, you could break these down even more. Like this part, like the Tidewater region might be a little different. There's the Deep South, vices the other. I mean, so there, you could sub isogloss them as well, more regionally. But these are big areas where you see big shifts in pronunciations or word usages or things like that. And again, it's not necessarily important that you memorize these regions. Just understand what they are and where they are, and then begin thinking, okay, if it shifts from here to here, why? If it shifts from here to here, why? What is different about these areas? What is different about them geographically? What is different about them from a population standpoint? So always kind of keep these things in mind from a cultural standpoint. How are they different? And if they are different based on cultural makeup, then that would explain how those words change and how their language changes. All right. Now, East Coast isoglosses, Northern, Midlands, Southern. All right. These are the three big isoglosses from the East Coast. Um, Now, how has mass media and or the internet affected the English language? So, what has it done to the English language? Anybody? Also, a nice thing when you just a little teacher tip. When you do notes and you do PowerPoints, they are sequenced for a reason. So when questions like this come up, think back, which is redundant, but think about what previous slides and what were the key topics in previous slides and what were the things they were talking about. And we were talking about, as far as this PowerPoint is concerned, specific reasons for the change in how we speak within America, how different words are used, how dialects are changed, how pronunciations change and spellings change. So if that was the information before, and I would argue this applies to almost every, especially in social sciences, every series of notes or any book or any lecture you take. If all that information is laid out before you, this is asking for you to predict. And predict means future. Predict means guess. Predict means how are things changing. So all those things we mentioned, what is the mass media and the internet, which is almost one thing now, how are they affecting the English language? What is being done to the English language in spite of isogloss or in spite of dialect or two isogloss and two dialect? That's the kind of question, that's the kind of thing that this question is asking. And those are the type of questions that you need to have the wherewithal to answer, to be able to sit there and go, okay, we spoke of this and this and this, and we know that they're tied to these concepts in geography or these concepts of culture. So what is this doing to either enhance or undo those concepts? That's what this is. Okay. So What do you think? Coming back to this slide, are there going to be more dialects, fewer dialects, more words, fewer words? Go back to the beginning of this presentation when we talked about what is language. Is our language, is the lexicon increasing or decreasing? All right, we'll come back to that. And again, remember, any questions you have, post them. Any questions about any content or concepts, post them, and I will create something to help them make more sense as well. So please don't use this as an opportunity to just sit and write. Ask the teacher questions. No matter where I am or whoever is watching this, I'm your teacher. All right. English as a global lingua franca. Here's our next term. And there we go. What is lingua franca? Well, there's linguist, there's language. It's got to be something to do with language. I'm going to guess. Just going to guess. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say language. All right. It's a language used to make communication possible between two groups who don't share the same language. It's the hand gestures. How do you go to a foreign country and they don't know English and you don't know their language, and how do you get something across? That's what lingua franca is. But this is structured and formal, and this is what is used so that we can get work done. We can make a trade. If you think back to the earliest of times, or during the height of um, exploration, or even now. I mean, how do we get, well, now we can type, but how do we get spoken words and spoken ideas across and have them be positive and not detrimental? All right. So, what systems of communication are largely dominated by English? So, where is the English language the dominant language? What systems, what methods do we see English most largely in the world? Anybody? I think so. All right, let's look. The internet, yes. English as a second language. It's even in the name. And global commerce. Over the last decade, English has become the synonymous language with business. Prior to English, does anyone know what the international language of business and finance was? Anyone? Right. It was French. Okay. So, but now it's English. So these are the three biggest places that we see the influence of the English language in our world. The internet, and again, with Google Translate, you can basically open a file somewhere and translate it to English and hope it's the right words. The ESL program, English as a second language, and then global commerce and trade. All right. Now, this map. This is an interesting map. And again, think back. Think about England and the sun never setting on the empire and a quarter of the world's population. And look, former English colony. In fact, all of this was at one time India. Over here, various parts of Africa. Oh yeah, there. But these other places develop English, and again, the American colonies, the Caribbean islands, the United States and England, more America out here. But it makes sense that where Britain or America had an economic or political footprint, English is the official or dominant language. And notice too that even this matters because remember, New Zealand, more people speak English, but it's not necessarily the official language. So just because people speak it a lot or more people speak it than, say, the native language or the official language, it doesn't necessarily mean it is official. Okay. Now, many areas do not learn full English, but they learn Pidgin, and Pidgin knows how it's spelled. And Pidgin is it's an amalgam. It's a mixture of two languages into this other type of language that's not formally English or formally the French or formally Spanish, but it's like a blah of both. And it's just again, it's a way to communicate. I think I think Creole is a Pidgin language, but I'll check. I'll ask Siri. I'll ask Siri right now. Hey Siri, May I have an example of a pidgin language, please?
Okay, I found this on the web for may I have an example of a pigeon language, please? Check it out.
I will. Thank you. All right, let's see what we have. Um, yeah. It's also known as an auxiliary language. English pidgins are, see, there's Nigerian pidgin English, Chinese pidgin English, Hawaiian pidgin English. Um, One of the official languages of Vanuatu, which is an island in the South Pacific, is pidgin. That's cool. All right, so there's some examples of pidgin language. Okay, moving on. All right, so it's a simplified version of a language. Okay, would text speak be considered pidgin? And if you say yes, what's an example? Because I'm going to argue no, because it's English. It's just short, lazy English. No, it's not. It's not even English. It's short, lazy English. All right. Now, a pidgin that becomes a major language of a people is called a Creole language. That's right there, if I had to guess, is somewhere in the former French Indochina, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, because there's French in there, like there, and Nave, but um, also the local dialect, also the local language there. So when it becomes major, it becomes a Creole. So that kind of answers my question. Okay, toponymy, our last section in language. Woo! Okay, toponymy. What is it? It's the place names. Toponymy is the study of place names. Like Raleigh. Why is Raleigh Raleigh? That's right, because of Sir Walter Raleigh, that man who made I think dozens of visits to North Carolina during his time he was alive. And before I get in trouble on YouTube, no, he didn't. He never left England. Okay, but the toponymy of places provides insight into why it's named what it's named, and there are reasons for there are categories for the types of names given to places. All right, so here we go. One, the history of a place. Most Brazilian cities are Portuguese, which makes sense since it's the only non-Spanish speaking. No, it's one of two non-Spanish speaking countries in South America. The other, anyone? Let me know. French toponyms in Louisiana, from Acadia, from northeast Canada. Those people came down and settled here. So it's not even true continental French. It's again, it's a different French, so it changes a third time. Or from a cultural standpoint, it's named for famous people: George Washington Bridge, Martin Luther King Boulevard, Jacksonville, Florida, named for. I'm gonna go with well, in Florida, probably Andrew Jackson. That would be my guess. I could be wrong, but named for a famous person. So here we go. There are descriptive toponyms, the no-brainer toponyms, the Rocky Mountains. Okay, that's a nice picture. Or how about Pensacola Beach, Florida? It's a beach in the town of Pensacola in Florida, and a very pivotal part of one of Mr. Story's favorite movies. Okay, how about commemorative toponyms? New York City, New York. It's commemorating New York. And remember, York is in England. This was the New York. It was once New Amsterdam. So New York City is a city commemorating New York. Okay. The city's so nice, they named it twice. How about manufactured toponyms? And by that, they just mean, let's just call it this: Truth and Consequences, New Mexico. There are, I think, four hells in the United States. I think. And I'll get an actual answer for you later. But these are names that are just made up. There's no tie to. I guess all names are made up, but there's no tie to the geography. There's no historical or cultural tie to this, so far as I know. It's just let's just call it Truth and Consequences, New Mexico. And then finally, incident, named for historic events. Battle Creek, Michigan, is named for a battle. along this creek, or some places are named for actual geographic features. But this is about an incident that took place. And by the way, Battle Creek, Michigan, it's the home of Kellogg's. All right. And then there are possessive toponyms named for people. This is Johnson City, Texas, named for probably Andrew Johnson. No, I don't know. Hold on. Because Andrew Johnson was later. Texas was a state long before. Hold on. Let's see. Hey Siri, who is Johnson City, Texas named for?
The answer right out is James Polk Johnson.
Interesting. Well, now I gotta look that up. I thought it was James K. Polk, but now it's James Polk Johnson. I'll look that up. That's fascinating. See, learning. You're never too old to learn. Okay, so there you go. That is language. Our next unit, our next part of culture, the last part, which will begin tomorrow or next time we meet, or next time you decide to log in, will be religion. Because can't think of a better way to end culture than talking about something that causes no problems anywhere. All right. Make sure to check my YouTube channel for these videos. Remember to take your time and pause. Stay safe. Be good. Read a book. I dare to dream. And I'll see y'all tomorrow. Y'all be good, one another. Peace.